Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Beatles Forever. We're getting closer to the end of the book, Living the Beatle Legend by Kenneth Womack. It's a great book because we learn about the man, Mal Evans, who did so much to keep the Beatles going as a group. So let's see what's going on today. Mal at this time was in Rome, staying at Rome's Grand Hotel. Mal said, while we were there, I was to be given a part in the film, which delighted me to no end. For having been a Western freak all my life, my ambition, of course, was to star in a Western, and a bit part is a step in the right direction, isn't it? By day, Mal and Ringo had to go to a horse riding school where the riding master put them through their paces. The roadie was thrown from his horse several times. By night, the two friends hit the town, bruises and all. In his eternal quest for stardom, Mal enjoyed the excitement of being well-known personality like Ringo. For there was a breed of freelance photographers called paparazzi, and it seemed every time we went to a restaurant to eat, the manager would phone them. They would come bursting into the restaurant taking pictures, the manager indignantly having to throw them out. After, I'm sure, he received a large tip. A few weeks later, Mal and Ringo joined the cast and crew on the Blindman set in Almeria, and that was the same Spanish city where 5 years earlier John had starred as Private Gripweed in How I Won the War. When they got there, Mal started to suffer from bouts of insomnia along with stomach troubles. That in turn made him feel insecure, and he would write home to his family for reassurance. Don't ever stop loving me, Lil, Gary, and Julie, for you are the most beautiful people, the most important people in my life. Ringo played Candy on the set of Blindman. He was an outlaw in love with a rancher's daughter. Mal in his cameo played Honey, one of the grimy cohorts of the double-crossing bandit, played by none other than Alan Klein, who was co-producing the film. Mal despised Klein, and it sounded like he had good reasons. But for the film shoot, Mal seemed more than willing to extend an olive branch to the notorious Apple boss. Mal liked playing a gun-toting desperado under any circumstances. Besides, Klein rented a yacht for the duration of their stay on the Andalusian coast, the ideal lure, in Mal's estimation, when one was trying to pull the chicks. Mal at this time got a distressing call from his parents back in Liverpool. His 66-year-old father, Fred, had suffered a succession of heart attacks and fallen into a coma. He wasn't expected to survive. I can picture the scene now, Mal wrote later, sitting in my bedroom in the hotel, looking out over the beautiful blue sea sparkling in the warm sunshine, and crying my eyes out. Even so, the roadie didn't make any plans for a hasty return to England. As he had since the India trip, Mal had traveled with his well-thumbed copy of Paramahansa Yogananda's autobiography of the yogi, which he consulted in his hour of need. This time, he recalled, I opened it on the page where Yogananda talks about his own father dying. I laid back in my easy chair and started to read. Then I had the most incredible experience. It was as though Yogananda was talking to me. I didn't hear anything, but I felt a beautiful warm glow as though he was breathing inside me, saying, Don't worry, your father will be all right. Not missing a beat, Mal phoned home, announcing to his family that Fred would be making a full recovery. All Mal could do was pray. He felt that rushing to his father's bedside would be senseless. After all, given what had been prophesied in his vision, Mal awaited the inevitable good news from Klein's yacht on the Spanish coast. Not long afterward, Fred took the expected turn for the better, in Mal's words, making what can only be called a miraculous recovery. Fred's recovery couldn't have come at a better time. It allowed Mal the luxury of a few extra days lounging on the beach and prepping for a scene with Klein. Their cameos called for them to pretend to sleep in a bed beside a well-endowed actress, with Mal's hand resting on her breast and Alan using her belly as a pillow. In his moment, Mal had to rise out of bed, cross to a nearby window, and say, Take your sisters to the miners, blind man. Several days before the shoot, the other more experienced actors on the set picked on Mal and predicted that he would mess up his lines. Mal wasn't having it. He impressed American actor Lloyd Battista. Mal had gotten him to be his dialogue coach. Ringo heroically came to his friend's aid, volunteering in a moment of sublime role reversal to act as Mal's road manager for the day. Tending to his makeup, making sure he was fed and giving him coffee and tea on the set. In the end, a determined Mal delivered his lines perfectly, admitting that it was a good day for me, for I loved being in front of the camera. That same month, as Mal and Ringo were cavorting on the set of Blindman, George had traveled to L.A. on the Raga soundtrack with Ravi Shankar. Ravi was distressed at the news out of Bangladesh, where more than 7 million refugees had been devastated by cyclones, torrential rains, and a resulting cholera epidemic. At the same time, more than 250,000 Bengalis had been killed at the hands of the Pakistani army, resulting in a humanitarian disaster of epic proportions. George used his celebrity to bring some relief to the Bangladeshis, and he spent 6 weeks assembling a supergroup of musicians to perform a pair of benefit concerts that August at New York City's Madison Square Garden. During the week prior to the shows, Mal and George moved into the Plaza Hotel to make final preparations. With Klein acting as a promoter, the event was billed as George Harrison and Friends. Special guests included Ringo, Shankar, Bob Dylan, Eric Clapton, Billy Preston, Leon Russell, and Badfinger. George, with Mal tagging along, visited John and Yoko's suite at St. Regis's Hotel, hoping to convince them to take part in the benefit. George's goodwill mission turned into a shouting match with his old friend. John later blamed himself for not participating, saying, "We nearly went, and Yoko would have gone. It was me. I was just too paranoid." As for Paul, he simply couldn't fathom performing at an event associated with Alan Klein. Besides, if I'd have showed up and John had turned up, the headlines around the world would have screamed, "The Beatles are together again." Giving a benefit concert was complex. There were so many musicians and their instruments being carried around on stage in quick succession. Mal got Kevin Harrington to serve as his fellow roadie. Kevin, remember, I used to get butterflies in my stomach whenever I got a new gig, but with an event of the magnitude of the concert for Bangladesh, he now experienced those butterflies tenfold. For Mal, his greatest highlights were working with Kevin again and seeing Badfinger's Pete Ham perform "Here Comes the Sun" as a duet with George. I was proud to see a guy I thought of as my protege standing alongside another dear friend in the limelight, which he richly deserved. The buzz that accompanied the benefit's origins, the concert for Bangladesh, sold out quickly, leaving some fans heartbroken that they weren't able to get tickets. An avid fan from Maine, Linda Dearborn, had traveled to New York City. She was desperate to see her idols in person at Madison Square Garden. She was calm when she had regular interaction with Mal, whom she encountered outside the Plaza Hotel during the run-up to the benefit. She said Mal was exactly the person we had read about, friendly, outgoing, enjoying people and the experience. Linda also remembered observing Neil Aspinall coming and going that weekend. Neil was still reeling from the dissolution of Apple in Klein's unruly hands. She said he ignored all of us and our questions. We were disappointed in him. The difference between him and Mal was night and day. A few days after the concerts, Mal and George visited John and Yoko at the St. Regis Hotel, where the couple had set up shop on the 17th floor. They had even hired a new personal assistant and 20-year-old May Pang. She had been formerly employed in Alan Klein's New York City offices. With Dylan in tow, John and George conducted an impromptu jam session at the St. Regis. In a matter of minutes, any rift between the two ex-Beatles had healed. All was right with the world. On September the 1st, with a concert for Bangladesh in the books, George proudly authorized a check for UNICEF for nearly $250,000. His humanitarian effort had paid off handsomely. He would later commemorate the event by awarding each of the concert participants a medallion. Mal took to hanging his around his neck from a leather strap. But the real bonanza for UNICEF and the refugees was yet to come. That December, Capitol Records reported receipts totaling $3.8 million for advance sales of the Concert for Bangladesh live album. But what Mal didn't know, or couldn't have known, was that he would never be a road manager for another gig again. After George's triumph at Madison Square Garden, Mal made his way to California, where he was set to rendezvous with Lil, Gary, and Julie for their annual August vacation. Inspiring his envy, his family had flown over from the United Kingdom on a Boeing 747. Mal's opportunity to take flight on one of the jumbo jets would have to wait. Ken Mansfield invited the Evans family to stay at his home in L.A. For Gary and Julie, it was a dream vacation. Mansfield lived alone in a large secluded house in the Hollywood Hills. More important, the house featured a giant swimming pool. Gary and Julie practically lived in that pool. Every night they looked like prunes, Mansfield recalled. To them, everything was so California, just like they had seen in the movies. The weather was sunny and incredible all the time. When they weren't playing in the Mansfield's pool, the kids were at the beach or whiling away the hours at Disneyland. Gary really liked the Houdini estate, which had been owned by the escape artist Harry Houdini until his untimely death in 1926. Mal at the time was disappearing as Houdini had done, often being away from Mansfield's home for hours at a time. Gary remembers witnessing his mother's growing suspicion that her husband was out seeing other women. Gary liked magic, and 5-year-old Julie was crazy about cows, squealing with delight when Mal returned with a cowgirl outfit. So I'm going to end the video here. This was a good episode because things were going so right for Mal during this time. He got to do a cameo with Ringo in a Western movie, and he was with George to help him with the Bangladesh concert, and he was with his family in California for their vacation, though Lil suspected that she wasn't the only one he was seeing. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you haven't subscribed, if you could do so, it would help the channel to grow, as well as give it a thumbs up. It's all a great help. And if you haven't clicked on the notification bell, if you could do that, it lets you know when a video is posted. More importantly, I want to wish everyone a good day, and tune in again soon for another episode of the Beatles Forever. Thank you. Bye.